A 48-hour ultimatum from the President of the United States to a country with missiles that can now reach Europe. Last night, President Donald Trump posted a threat to Iran on Truth Social that stopped the world in its tracks. He said, and these are his exact words, that the United States will hit and obliterate Iran's power plants, starting with the biggest one first, if Tehran doesn't fully open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours. Iran's response? They threatened to hit American energy and desalination facilities across the Gulf right back. And that's not even the most alarming thing that happened this weekend. Iran fired ballistic missiles at Israel's nuclear research site. Iran's own nuclear facility at Natanz was struck. And in a development that shook intelligence analysts worldwide, Iran launched missiles at a U.S. military base 2,500 miles away in the middle of the Indian Ocean, targeting a base they previously claimed they couldn't even reach. The war is now in its fourth week, and it just entered a terrifying new phase. This is everything you need to know about Day 23. Let's break it all down. Let's start with the single most alarming headline of the day, because it came directly from the President of the United States, and it has a countdown clock attached to it. Late Saturday night, Trump posted on Truth Social. He wrote in all capitals that if Iran doesn't fully open the Strait of Hormuz without any threat within 48 hours, the United States will hit and obliterate Iran's power plants, starting with the biggest one first. Now let that sink in for a moment. The President of the United States is publicly threatening to destroy a country's entire civilian power grid. Not military bases, not missile sites, power plants, the infrastructure that keeps hospitals running, that keeps homes heated, that keeps water pumping, for 90 million people. Intelligence analysts immediately speculated about which plant Trump meant. Iran's largest facility is the Dimona Combined Cycle Power Plant, a massive gas-fired plant located roughly 70 kilometers southeast of Tehran. There's also Bushehr, Iran's nuclear power plant, which was already struck last week. The deliberate ambiguity of Trump's threat was clearly intentional: maximum pressure, maximum uncertainty. Iran didn't flinch. Within hours, Iranian officials issued counter-warnings that if the U.S. struck Iranian power plants, Tehran would respond by targeting American energy and desalination facilities throughout the Persian Gulf. The Gulf states that depend on desalination plants for their drinking water, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain, suddenly found themselves directly mentioned in Iran's threat calculus. Now here's the twist that makes this even more complicated. Just one day before issuing this ultimatum, Trump had publicly talked about winding down the war. He'd said Iran was sending signals it wanted to make a deal. Within 24 hours, the entire tone flipped. Why? Gas prices. The national average in the United States hit $3.91 per gallon on Friday, up 93 cents since the war started on February 28th. That's nearly $1 added to every tank of gas in under 4 weeks. Trump is under enormous domestic pressure to fix the energy crisis, and the Strait of Hormuz closure is the single biggest reason prices are surging. Daily transit calls through the strait have collapsed from over 120 per day earlier this year to nearly zero. So this ultimatum isn't just about Iran, it's about oil prices at home. It's about politics, and the clock is now ticking. Now let's talk about what may be the single most dangerous escalation in this entire war: the targeting of nuclear facilities on both sides. On Saturday, Iran's state media reported that the Natanz nuclear enrichment complex, Iran's main uranium enrichment site, located about 220 kilometers southeast of Tehran, was struck in an airstrike. Israel denied any responsibility. The Pentagon declined to comment, but Natanz has been hit before, in the very first week of this war and during the 12-day conflict last June. The IAEA, the International Nuclear Watchdog, confirmed it was informed about the strike and was looking into it. Iranian officials said there was no radiation leakage. Russia's foreign ministry called the strikes a real risk of what they described as a catastrophic disaster throughout the Middle East. Let that word hang in the air for a moment. Catastrophic, disaster. Those are the words a nuclear superpower is using to describe what's happening at enrichment sites in the Middle East. Iran responded with precision. Hours after the Natanz strike, Iranian ballistic missiles came raining down on two Israeli cities in the Negev desert, Dimona and Arad, both located near Israel's own nuclear research center, the Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center. The results were devastating. In Arad, at least 64 people were taken to hospitals. 7 were in serious condition, 15 in moderate condition. A 4-year-old girl was listed as seriously injured. Buildings were shattered. Emergency crews scrambled through rubble looking for survivors. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu appeared on camera and called it, in his own words, a very difficult evening. In Dimona, a separate strike injured 39 more people, including a 10-year-old boy in critical condition with multiple shrapnel wounds. A 3-story building completely collapsed. Here is the detail that should genuinely alarm every person watching this video. Israel's military admitted it was not able to intercept the missiles. Their air defense systems were activated, but they failed to engage the threat. Iran's parliament speaker responded on social media, writing that if Israel cannot intercept missiles in the heavily protected Dimona area, it is, operationally, a sign that the battle has entered a new phase. He's right. If Iran can now land ballistic missiles directly in the heart of Israel's nuclear zone, bypassing some of the most sophisticated air defense systems on the planet, the entire strategic balance of this war has shifted. The IAEA rushed to confirm that no abnormal radiation levels had been detected near the nuclear center. For now, the world dodged a catastrophic bullet. But the question hanging over every expert, every government, every person paying attention is simple. What happens if the next missile is a few kilometers more accurate? Now here's a development that quietly terrified Western intelligence communities this weekend, and it hasn't gotten nearly the coverage it deserves. Iran fired 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia. That is a joint U.S.-UK military base sitting on a remote island in the Indian Ocean, 2,500 miles from Iran's coastline. 2,500 miles. Let me explain why that number matters so much. For years, Iran's official position was that its missiles had a maximum range of 2,000 kilometers, roughly 1,250 miles. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi had publicly stated on record, before this war even started, that Iran kept its missile range deliberately below that threshold. He said Iran didn't want and didn't have that capability. Those were his words. Those words are now officially worthless. One of the 2 missiles fired at Diego Garcia malfunctioned mid-flight. The other was intercepted. Neither hit the base, but that's almost secondary to what the attempt itself revealed. Diego Garcia is one of the most strategically critical military installations on the planet. It has a runway capable of launching heavy B-52 and B-2 bombers. It has a deep harbor for nuclear submarines. It's the base from which the U.S. projects military power across the entire Indian Ocean region. Iran just told the world it can reach it. And analysts immediately connected a disturbing dot. This kind of targeting intelligence, knowing exactly where Diego Garcia is, how to aim long-range ballistic missiles at it, is not something Iran generates on its own. According to U.S. intelligence reporting confirmed by CNN, Russia has been providing Iran with intelligence about the location and movements of American troops, ships, and aircraft. The targeting of Diego Garcia, some experts suggest, had Russian fingerprints on it. Britain condemned the attack in the sharpest terms possible. The UK Ministry of Defense called it reckless and said Iran's attacks were holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage and threatening British interests. Notably, the British government had announced just hours after the Diego Garcia attack that it would allow U.S. military bombers to use UK bases, including Diego Garcia itself, to conduct defensive operations around the strait. Iran struck the base before that announcement was even officially made. The message from Tehran was unmistakable. We know where you are, and we can reach you. Against this backdrop of missile strikes and nuclear brinkmanship, tragedy struck Qatar in a different way on Sunday morning. A Qatari military helicopter crashed into the country's territorial waters following what the Ministry of Defense described as a technical malfunction during a routine training flight. 7 people were on board, 6 were killed, 1 crew member remained missing as of Sunday, with search operations ongoing.